Since starting my journey with Home Assistant, I've been struggling to connect both Zigbee and Z-Wave devices. I had been using Home Assistant's Sky Connect, but this only provides Zigbee, and that means we miss out on a lot of great devices that I have sitting in a box or 4. But I think I've found what I'm going to use. This is the new Aeotec Z-Stick 10 Pro, and it connects both Zigbee and Z-Wave devices into Home Assistant, but it's more than that. It connects the newest Z-Wave 800 series, Z-Wave long-range devices, and Zigbee 3.0, as well as using ZHA in Home Assistant or Zigbee to MQTT. I didn't even understand that I needed access to all of those things when I started researching some of these little dongles. So if you're like me, just know that that might become important for you in your journey to build a smart home with Home Assistant. So today I'm going to show you how to get this set up and how you can build a reliable network with both of these technologies. Let's give her. One of the most important questions you'll have is why I chose this. And let me start with what this is, and then I'll get to a bit on that. Now, this is a USB-A plug-in or dongle that works almost exclusively with Home Assistant, although you could build your own fully DIY home automation system with this. Now, you'll need a USB port to plug in, and my Home Assistant green works great for this. Once connected physically, the Z-Stick provides Zigbee and Z-Wave radios for Home Assistant to use. That in turn lets you build your own networks of smart home gear using those technologies. This is Zigbee 3.0, so that makes it backwards compatible with previous versions. Zigbee Lightlink is probably the key older standard to know about there. With this radio, you can set up basic Zigbee home automation, or you can use the Zigbee to MQTT, and yeah, there's even more options out there. It's also Z-Wave 800, which again makes it backwards compatible with just about every Z-Wave device out there. You'll struggle to find things that don't work, but we only tested back to version 5. This is also Z-Wave long range, which is the most recent addition to the Z-Wave standard. It provides connectivity really far away from your home, as long as you have devices that use long range as well. Now for Z-Wave, you'll generally use the Z-Wave JS-UI in Home Assistant. Both of those can be run at the same time, and after having connected over 30 devices to the Z-Stick 10 Pro, I can tell you that your networks will generally be stable and strong when built right. Each of those technologies has a different set of specs, and that will mean you'll likely build those networks a bit differently. So I'll show you what I recommend for each technology later in the video. But let's get into the basic setup process for the Z-Stick 10 so you can see how this all works. What you get in the box is pretty minor. So this is the box, very small, so you're not expecting a lot of stuff in there. But there is something that is fairly important. So this is the manual for it. And I think most people are going to be using this with Home Assistant. And here's the setup guide for that. There are more detailed guides as well in that page. So it's the full fact page for the whole product. They are available in a number of languages. The Z-Stick itself is very small. It's gonna plug into a USB port, and this is really it. The one thing that I might consider when I look at this is that it's gonna be really close to whatever you're plugging it into. So it would be good for a lot of people to get an extension cable, a USB extension, and then plug this in and get this a little bit away from your hub or other radios that are around your hub. There could be interference kind of created from that. So that's my advice for this kind of product, but otherwise that's all you're getting. When you're setting up the Aeotec Z-Stick 10 Pro, you have kind of two components to deal with, and If you don't have Zigbee or Z-Wave on your Home Assistant instance today, then this will be fairly straightforward. There's a couple of guides. You just scan the QR code and go through the different guides. They're not very difficult. But if you happen to have Zigbee on there already, you're going to have to remove those things. So there was kind of two things that I had on my instance here that I had to get rid of. The first was the Sky Connect. So I actually had a Sky Connect and I had to disable that, all right? That's what I did at first. Then I had to delete Zigbee Home Automation, and that got rid of the Zigbee component because you can't have two installed. That's how I'm doing it. To get rid of that, I did have to reboot my Home Assistant instance, and then I had it unplugged and it kind of came up, and then I could delete it. So that was how I got rid of mine. For dealing with Zigbee, this is a fairly easy integration. We're just gonna hit add integration on our devices and services page, and then we're gonna search for Zigbee Home Automation. So then I'm going to choose that, and now we have to choose the device's serial or the serial device path. To pick that, you know what? I've plugged it into the top one. I think that's this one. I'm gonna try it. Because of the device we're using, we're going to be choosing EZSP Silicon Labs. So this is the radio type. Okay, and then we're gonna hit submit. Now we're just reconfirming some things and then choosing the port speed. So this is what your port speed should be. The data flow control, I believe it is software that you're gonna wanna choose for data flow control, and then you're gonna hit submit. Okay, so clearly I had the wrong port, and I'm gonna hit submit. So I just changed that USB 1 to USB 0. For me, I did have that Zigbee network before, so I'm going to erase the network settings and create a new network. If you happen to have a backup or radio settings that you wanna keep, you can do that. So I'm gonna hit erase, create a new network. So now they've found the device on the right USB port, and now I've just placed it into an area in my home. I have 2 devices, and you can see we have 44 entities. So we've set up Zigbee, and now we can add our first Zigbee device if we'd like. Setting up Z-Wave is a little bit different here. Now we have to go into the settings, but instead of just going to the devices and services section, we're gonna go into add-ons. Now we're going to choose the add-on store, and here we'll be looking for Z-Wave JS, and then you'll see that there is this UI version. So we're gonna click that, and now we're going to install this. You can have a read through this, but this is important because it's gonna let you use your long range capability and the 800 series Z-Wave devices that you're probably gonna wanna put into Home Assistant. It's installed now, and I've selected to start this on boot because you're gonna want that every time. You may wanna do things like auto update, but I'm gonna leave that for now so I can control my updates of any sort of Z-Wave firmware changes or any changes to this add-on. Now I'm hitting start, and then we're gonna do a little bit of configuration here. Now that it's started up, we can see the CPU usage, the RAM usage is very low, so that's nice, but I'm gonna open the web UI. Now that we're in the user interface, we're gonna go over here on the side. You may want to click this to kind of pull that out, but settings, now we're gonna click the Z-Wave here. So we've got it enabled, and then now we have to choose our serial port. What you're gonna wanna choose is here, okay? It's the second option, the IF01 port 0, okay? That, I grabbed that directly from their help here on this, okay? And that's why the IF01 port 0, that's where I'm getting that from. Now that I've done that, I want to refresh my 6 security keys. So we have these 4 right here, and you're gonna hit the refresh button. I've kind of hidden these keys for you so I don't have to blur the whole screen. And then here again, I wanna do the long range ones, okay? So once you've done those 6, you've got security keys in there, you're gonna hit save at the bottom of this page. So I was having trouble getting this configuration to kind of say, okay, everything's working after having put in this information, hitting save. I had originally done some things wrong, so I think that was part of my problem. But when you go back to the main control panel, you should see this right here. This has to show up. So that's why I did a reboot, and now I have it there and I'm good to go. We're not gonna change anything on this. Look, you give me a big warning there. So I'm not gonna change anything there. What we actually need to do now is add a device. So I'm gonna go to Devices and Services. I'm gonna hit Add Integration, and we want Z-Wave. So I've selected Z-Wave. It kind of says select Z-Wave JS, so I'm hoping this is going to work. Use the Z-Wave Supervisor add-on. I don't want to do that. So then we're going to hit Submit, and what we're pasting in here actually comes from the Aeotec FAQ on this, or their help desk file. That's exactly what you want to paste in there, and then you want to hit Submit. I'm going to place this into my room that I have for radios, and now I have a device. We can see the status. There are 15 disabled entities here, so if you want to see some things, some diagnostic tools, you can do that. And now we have our Z-Wave installed, so now we can go and add Z-Wave devices too. I want to talk about one detail before we move on from the setup and install process of this. The fact is, I'm not showing how to use Zigbee to MQTT in today's video, and that'll have to come in a future one, okay? It's kind of a topic on its own to talk about that versus Zigbee Home Automation in Home Assistant. And there are other plugins and other add-ons that you may want to use. So this is kind of the recommended path from the folks at Home Assistant and at Aeotec for this device. I think that's probably the best one for beginners. The Zigbee Home Automation integration provides support for most of the basic types of Zigbee devices. Now here's the list. It's going to do a lot of the work for you, and you're not going to have to do a lot of management here. You're not going to need a lot of management tools. Now that might be a drawback for you, but it's also going to make it so you have a bit of an introduction if you're a beginner into working with these kinds of things. In the future, if you do want to change to MQTT to manage your Zigbee network, you can do that, but understand you pretty much have to redo your whole Zigbee network, or at least that's as it stands today. Now, let's get into some of the details for how you start to add the devices and how you can build a reliable network. Now, it's very simple to add either a Zigbee or a Z-Wave device. No matter which type you're using, head into the settings, then head into Devices and Services, and tap on Add Device. And because you've added the services and the radios, you can now pick from Z-Wave or Zigbee. At this point, all you need to do is prepare your device to pair with the Z-Stick. If you've lost your manual or you don't know how to do that, I tend to look up manuals online, just find their factory reset and or how to get them into pairing mode. Out there near the garage, I have 3 Z-Wave bulbs. Now, I'm having trouble communicating with them, and you're probably gonna run into this problem yourself. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to add something and then reroute the communication. Let me show you what I mean. Inside of Z-Wave, I have 5 different devices, and when I'm inside of here, it's easy to add Z-Wave devices, a little easier than going and searching how to do it. But this little smart plug by Zeus, it's an outdoor one, and I've just added that in. Now, they want a specific key, so that's the Z-Wave security key. I've entered that in, and now I hit submit, and it's securely pairing. So that's one of the nicer things with the new Z-Wave devices or newer Z-Wave devices. Now it's interviewing this device. So now that it's in here, we can start to reroute communication. Inside of that light that's just out there on my man door. I can go into that device and I can hit rebuild routes. So while you're doing this, obviously you don't want to be trying to control your home. Now this should be in its final location, but actually we're just a couple of meters away from where this will sit. So it says garage man door routes have been rebuilt. And now I can very clearly control my garage man door light. I'm gonna place that plug outside and we're gonna see if we get control of everything. Before I show you the tools that you have for troubleshooting issues with Zigbee or Z-Wave networks, I wanna give you some tips and tricks for getting everything to work right. Likely the biggest problem you'll have with Zigbee is that it uses 2.4 gigahertz as what is called the carrier frequency. Now that means that Wi-Fi and or Zigbee waves can interfere with each other. You can also have other Zigbee networks affect this one. So if you're using something like Philips Hue, that could interfere. The good news is there's a channel editor in most smart home networks, but before you change that, make sure you know what you're doing, okay? What I will do is I'll check my Wi-Fi signals as much as the Zigbee channels being used by other hubs. Knowing both of those will give you a good idea of which channel you should use for Home Assistant. In fact, I've produced videos in the past about interference between these two technologies. I'll leave a link below to that, as well as an article that does a really good job of explaining the details behind these two technologies interfering with each other. For Zigbee Home Automation, here's how you get to change the channel, or you know what, other parts of your configuration. Head into settings, devices and services, and then into Zigbee Home Automation. Here you'll find a button that says configure. Inside of that first page, you will find the channel that you're using. It should be noted that certain Zigbee devices can only use certain channels, so watch out for that. Also, when you change this channel, anything not communicating at the time is probably not going to switch over, and you might have to repair it. In fact, that should be your expectation. Something else that can really help your network is to add what are called repeaters. Now, the Home Assistant support page for ZHA shows a number of different types of Zigbee devices. You should understand that the coordinator is the Z-Stick, and then the router device is an AC powered device, which means it's plugged into your wall. Those can repeat the Zigbee signal, and that's especially important with Zigbee because as a technology it doesn't travel that far. And that is where it's really important for you to use those types of devices. Home Assistant, they call them Zigbee router devices, and most literature will call them repeaters. What they do is they take the signal from your coordinator or another repeater, and then they send it on to other devices in the Zigbee network. Add those first if you can, and that will make it so when you go to add new devices, you can add them when you're in the right location. So you can actually stand where you want to add a Zigbee motion sensor or a Zigbee presence sensor. That is, if you have those repeaters already around your home. And finally, there are sometimes firmware updates for Zigbee devices. Now, this is pretty rare, but it can help with reliability and especially security. And there are a few companies that Home Assistant has pointed out in their literature that will provide over-the-air updates. This is enabled by default, so they'll just kind of pop up on your updates list, okay? But be aware, sometimes firmware updates could break connectivity or make something incompatible with your network. The last thing I want to tell you about Zigbee is that it is a self-healing network. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the nice troubleshooting tool that you have access to with Zigbee. Z-Wave pretty much just works, and that's because it has a lower carrier frequency and it's not going to be interfered with much else from around your home. It also travels further, so you're not going to need as many repeaters. although those do exist, and I did end up using them to get outside my home. Now, the different security levels and the different versions of Z-Wave can mean that the pairing process is a little bit different, but these are well explained by the manuals provided by your manufacturer. What I will say is that the older devices, or the ones that say they only support S0 security, they can cause a little extra traffic on your Z-Wave network, and you're not working with a lot of bandwidth there. So if you can add a device with S2 security, do that. You'll know you have an S2 security device when you have to input the DSK or you have to scan a QR code during the pairing process. In terms of the devices and the device types, it's handled a little differently than Zigbee Home Automation is. We've used Z-Wave JS to install, configure, and manage our network, and actually there's a device database that exists, so you can use that to look up whether or not a device you have or a device you're considering purchasing will work with this. One thing that you will find with Z-Wave and this specific integration is that you have two places where a device can be named. If you rename the device in the Z-Wave JS UI and then you go into devices and services and then into your Z-Wave service, you'll find an option to reload the service by clicking on the three dots. If you do that, it'll rename your Z-Wave devices based on the name you've set in the Z-Wave JS UI. Now, the first step in troubleshooting any sort of issue with Z-Wave or Zigbee is to look at interference. And the biggest source of interference could be the hub or the device you plug this into. The only thing you might need is to get something like this. This is a USB 2.0 male to female extension cable that could get you away from interference sources around your hub. Of course, each device on your network could be interfered with on its own. So if you're having problems with a specific device, or it just seems odd that you're having disconnections, maybe go out to that device, check for some interference sources there. Those could be a little bit different between Zigbee and Z-Wave networks, but big metal objects and other radios can be a problem. There's one specific problem that I can say crops up a lot, and then people kind of blame the device. So if you're having problems with a specific battery-powered device, in a lot of cases, it's your battery. If you're out there buying kind of cheap batteries, they're not maintaining the right voltage for the device, they can't handle the draw, you're just gonna run into problems with these staying connected. That can be a big problem with your battery devices. One thing that you want to pay attention to as you see our troubleshooting tools is that each of the radios have a sensitivity rating. With Zigbee, you can see the sensitivity rating is minus 99 dBm. So that is what's possible to be read by this device. However, a good guideline for you is that your RSSI should be between minus 30 to minus 70 dBm for a good solid signal strength. The same holds true for Z-Wave. And again, we see that crazy sensitivity rating, but you want to be within a minimum signal strength of minus 75 dBm or better. So I actually have some work to do in my network to get the signal strengths up to good, reliable levels, but I've had pretty good success even at these levels. But first, let's go through what I think is one of the best troubleshooting options for you. So I've been building up my Z-Wave and Zigbee networks, and one of the things that I really like about this, and really any tool here with Z-Wave, is this Z-Wave JS UI. So that's the add-on that we installed. And you were just seeing that little map there. I'm going to show you how to get to that, but it's really great for diagnosing problems and looking at things. But just even in the basic control panel, we have so many different pieces of information. So you can see what I have that has like Z-Wave security on it, right? Z-Wave Plus, the level of that, the protocols that are available. So when I hover over this, it says Z-Wave long range. So I know that that device has Z-Wave long range. Another thing that's really, really great, and this will really help you. You don't have to necessarily turn on all the entities for all your devices, or at least that's what I'm finding. We can set different names and things like that. Here in configuration, for example, this is, I want it as a previous state after power loss has occurred, okay? So you can see I just updated the value in that device. So I can check that, I can hit a refresh, just make sure that that was kind of pushed in. Something else that's really neat about this is I can trim off if, you know, I don't like the color adjustment of going all the way down to 2700 Kelvin. I don't have to have that. So really neat things that you get through this. You get a lot of direct impact to your devices. Super cool stuff. Let's say that I'm kind of having trouble communicating with a device. And actually, I've been having a little bit of trouble with these Innovelli bulbs. It was really nice to use them. They're very old. They don't have a lot of compatibility, so it was great to get them connected, but I've had some problems. Well, there's a number of ways to access this information, but this is just a wonderful graph. And one of the things that is so powerful about this is you can have a look at your different nodes. They kind of give you what the product is. And if you want more information, you might have to look at your devices a little bit. But here I go. I've clicked into this node 3. And let's say that I want to understand why maybe it's disconnecting a little bit. Well, this signal strength that's being stated could be part of the problem. Now I can rebuild routes to a device just by hitting this button. It's going to go and do that. Sometimes if it's not communicating, you'll have it fail. But there, it just did that. And now if I want, I can go back to the main diagram and I can kind of reload this. To do that, I can go into the options. We can have a look. It didn't decide to move it, but let's say that I wanted to move this very specifically. Well, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to set a priority route. So I'm sticking node 6 in the middle. I know that's a repeater that's in a good spot, and I'm going to hit set. Now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to reload my graph, and now you can see, okay, we've set a routing. And that may or may not help me with this specific device. I can have a look at potentially the signal strength between those as that is gathered for the device. But hopefully that's going to help me here at this point. And you know what? I'm going to do the same thing for node 4. I don't know whether it's working out, but we do have maybe a potential option there for fixing some of our network issues. I love that these are available for me, and that is in turn going to help me hopefully communicate with these different bulbs. Something else that I've been doing with lots of these devices. So here's one of those bulbs that we were just talking about. And you can see right now, the RSSI is minus 100 dBm. That's kind of giving me an indication that I might run into trouble, but I've been able to enable all of these different entities, these diagnostic entities. I really love this because it's giving me access to see, okay, has it been changing over time? Do I have a lot of interference out there? Little changes like this, not a big deal. But, you know, am I getting commands dropped? Are things disappearing to get out to this bulb? Really good diagnostic information for those of you trying to set up a network and manage a network like this. Here's one of the range extenders I added from Aeotec. And you know, if I want to enable those kinds of things, it's this simple. You just go into them, you go into the settings, you hit enable. It'll take 30 seconds to add it, and it might take some time to get data into it. But these are really fantastic as diagnostic information as you're kind of building up your network, but just great features that we're getting here. something that is helping me to kind of diagnose some of the issues and just that you have to understand about this whole system. So here in my list of devices, you can see I have a Fibaro group wall plug. This is node number 8. Well, you know, how do you figure that out? So devices and settings, I'm going to go into Z-Wave, and you could go straight into the devices, but when I click on the specific device, there's Z-Wave information, and there's the node ID right there. So that's one of the ways that you could do it. Obviously, you could kind of edit these, maybe add a label to them. Maybe you want to call it node 8 or something like that, or add it to the name. You could do those kinds of things as well. But that just gets you to kind of understand your picture. And then when you're in the add-on, you can start to adjust some of the naming in here. So right here, this is node 8 Fibaro. And I'm going to send that to the device, and now it's updated the name in here. And that'll just help you to kind of track things as you go. So as I've been going, I do have some things that have failed. You know, I kind of set some of those preferred routes, right? So I wanted 3 to kind of go behind 6, and I set that as a priority. We can hit diagnose. So, you know, this is from the perspective of node 3, but let's go from the perspective of node 6 and then hit diagnose and target node to run the route health check on. So I'm going to target node 3, and let's run this 3 times. You can run it for more, but this is just for the purposes of this demonstration. What's interesting about this is that they're showing me kind of the first results. You know, 2 node 6, 0 of 10 failed pings. Sending out from 6, they're showing me 0 of 10. But then the next time you see that, it comes in and it goes, okay, you're failing all of them. So what I have here is not a good connection. This can kind of help you know, is this going to work long term? Good little test to run and to watch. So we probably don't want to favorite or to kind of set this, this routing from node 6 to 3. So I'm going to hit delete, okay? And now I'm going to reset that route. Controller to node 4 to node 3. Okay, so I'm pretty sure from controller to node 4 to node 3 is going to work. And now we can have a look at our rebuilt or our reloaded graph. And if you get too far out there, you're starting to have too many problems, looking at all these failed nodes. We'll just rebuild it, start again. But, you know, in the end, what I want you to realize is you can kind of fully customize your routing. You can change and you can diagnose any problems you're having. This is really fantastic with Z-Wave gear. I'm inside of what's called the visualization panel for Zigbee Home Automation. You can see all my different devices are kind of labeled, and then there's colors of lines, and all of this could feel a little intimidating, but this is a great tool for you to kind of have a look at and potentially diagnose some little issues here. So I'm going to show you how to get to that. Let's start in the devices and services, and then we'll go into Zigbee Home Automation, and then we'll hit configure. Now, this is where I've shown you throughout the video, you could change the channel. There's other information here in case you need any of that. You can also migrate the radio if you ever decide to do something different. You can create groups if you'd like. That can help with automations. And then this is the visualization tab. What's great about the visualization tab is it's giving you some indication of LQI, okay? And I just want to introduce that term. It's link quality. The higher the number you're seeing, the better. And the colors, so like, for example here, 255, that's pretty much a perfect link quality measurement. So what they're saying here, I just had the whole diagram move around, is that the coordinator and this IKEA Valhorn motion sensor have a really good signal quality. Well, perfect, basically, okay? So it kind of goes green, yellow, red, gray. So you're going to see some gray, and generally the network's not going to take that path when you see it, but it might have to in some cases. So when we see something like this, you know, this is for me to go troubleshoot my own network and deal with things. I haven't really been having trouble with this sensor, but you can see that the link quality with the only link that's attached to this end device, it's not great. So that could be something that could be causing me trouble, and if it is, maybe I want to diagnose it. Now, how would I diagnose a problem like that? There's a few different ways, but let me show you one that you have access to within each of your devices. So I went back into Zigbee Home Automation. I'm going into devices. Oh, no, wait. I got to go back to entities. Now, you know, we were just looking at that motion sensor, and when I look at all the entities under that motion sensor, I have LQI. Now, I came in here and it was disabled, and I've enabled it, and you're gonna have to wait for some data to come into these kinds of things, but you can enable LQI and then you get a little bit of a chart in there if you need to deal with that. You can see my RSSI is disabled. I just enabled it, and now I'll start getting data in that. Now, RSSI is a signal strength measurement. So if you get too low, minus 80 to minus 100 dBm, maybe that's your problem. It's just a little too far away. Maybe adding a routing device will help you. So those kinds of tools can help you to start diagnose a few problems. Something else that you might want to have a look at inside of your battery chart. Have a look at what the battery's doing, especially obviously for a battery powered device. This can be a source of big problems. And I know we all want to save money on batteries, but when you save money on batteries, sometimes you cause yourself to lose time. So I kind of hate that. You see this battery going from 88% to 73%? Again, maybe that's my problem here. Maybe I've got a bad battery in there. Could just be old, could be a bad type. Maybe it's not holding voltage. Whatever it is, it's not doing so well when it does that jump. Now I'm going to watch that one, and I guess we'll see where it goes. Maybe I've got to replace that, and maybe I'll figure that out as we go. Inside of the entities, there's also the generic Zigbee coordinator and all of its entities. Now, I don't want to go through all of these different ones. So if you're having problems with your actual coordinator at some point, or it's just not able to connect to certain things, there are some tools in here. You can look up each one of these. So your search for any of these things doesn't have to be based on the Z-Stick. It's a generic Zigbee coordinator. So you can just kind of look up those things and see what they mean in Home Assistant to get yourself kind of to the detail you need. From my perspective, the Z-Stick 10 Pro is solving the biggest problem I had left with Home Assistant. And with this, I have Zigbee and Z-Wave handled, and I have lots of options for the future, plus the basis of a really solid network with both of those technologies. I have also found good reliability here, and of course, everything is being done by the book and in a way that promotes good features and good troubleshooting options when something goes wrong. There are a few options out there for devices like this. Aeotec has been building and producing hardware for both Z-Wave and Zigbee for many years, and in a lot of ways, they're both a pioneer and ahead of many companies. So this is an instant win for me, and I think for anyone building Home Assistant out, I think this is a great option. As such, the Z-Stick 10 Pro is an instant buy for me. I'll put the links down below to all the different resources you might need from our video today. We talked about a few of those. And of course, the links to buy this. And in fact, Aeotec has provided a discount code for you on their site. So if you're looking for a few products from them, this might be a good time to pick a few things up. Now, speaking of which, this has helped me connect another very important device from Aeotec, This is their newest power monitoring device. It's monitoring my entire home's energy usage. And if I'd like, I could even get that device to monitor solar panel production. So I got to look ahead here. So if you want to see more about that, check out the video that's right there. That's a great option for those of you using Home Assistant, Homey, or SmartThings. Otherwise, thanks for watching today. And of course, live smart.